How would you finance the ATV acquisition?
Out of pocket. It was probably one of the simplest financing deals in history.
Simple as that. That's how this man described one of the biggest music copyright acquisitions ever executed by an individual. That man was Michael Jackson. And this is the story of the King of Pop, but in the role of a business genius who once made the most powerful corporations tremble. In 1968, at an audition for Motown Records, then America's dominant label, there was a young boy from Gary, Indiana. That was Michael Jackson. Under the iron fist of his father, Michael and his four brothers formed a group called the Jackson 5. After signing with Motown, they quickly set unprecedented records. 4 consecutive singles hit #1 on charts across America.
What was it, the first time you saw the Jackson family, when Michael Jackson came in, what were your first impressions when you saw them perform in front of you?
Well, I was floored. When I saw them perform, I was really floored.
Michael was just 11 years old, yet he could sing about love and heartbreak in a way that made millions of adult women cry. But behind those dazzling stage lights, the reality was completely different. Experts estimate that by the end of 1972, the Jackson 5 had generated between $5.70 and $8.6 million in revenue, equivalent to roughly $41.70 to $62.9 million today. Michael once recalled seeing checks for $200,000 arriving at their house by mail. His father would cash them, hand the kids a few dollars for candy, and deposit the rest into a bank account. Young Michael probably thought his family was getting rich. But compared to the total profits Motown was raking in, that compensation was nothing. The Jackson family actually received only 2.8% in royalties from record sales. Even the name Jackson 5 belonged to the record label. Over time, Michael began to notice something was off. The family was still living in rented houses or apartments provided by the label in California. He frequently witnessed his father arguing intensely with company representatives. Michael wasn't allowed to sing melodies he wrote himself or pursue his own performance style. All he and his brothers had to do was step on stage, smile, and perform as programmed. Rehearsals dragged into the night, and the group toured continuously despite utter exhaustion. At the time, Michael was too young to fully understand the complex terms in those contracts. But that suffocating control planted the seeds of rebellion in a genius. By 1975, the Jackson family no longer wanted to operate under Motown's old system. They decided to join Epic Records. Their strong track record secured a lucrative deal with up to 20% royalties. Since the old label owned the Jackson 5 trademark, the brothers had to perform under a new name, the Jacksons. But more importantly, this was the first time in their career that the members could participate in writing music, producing and shaping their own performance style. The Jacksons maintained their massive appeal throughout the late 1970s. Yet every time the stage lights came on, all eyes were drawn to one person. From here, the door began to open for Michael to escape the shadow of being a child prodigy. In 1978, he starred in the musical film The Wiz, a modern version of The Wizard of Oz, featuring a cast of famous black Hollywood actors. The project's music was handled by Quincy Jones, a powerhouse American producer. The skinny kid didn't just memorize his own lines. He memorized the entire script for all the other actors. two kindred spirits quickly found common ground. The result, in 1979, the album Off the Wall was released. It immediately dominated American radio. The public began to see Michael as a legitimate solo artist, not just the lead singer of the Jacksons. After that success, Michael began pursuing a direction that most of the entertainment industry hadn't even considered. In the early 1980s, music videos were still seen as cheap promotional tools for new singles. But in Michael's eyes, they held enormous potential. He wanted to transform music videos into cinematic experiences with storylines, characters, choreography, and clear emotional arcs. That vision was fully realized in the album Thriller. In late 1983, the music video for the title track was released and immediately shocked the world. The nearly 14-minute video was a short horror film directed by Hollywood's John Landis. The production cost exceeded $500,000, an enormous sum for the music industry in the early 1980s.
There was one problem. Epic Records didn't want to invest more in an album that had already achieved massive sales. So Michael decided to fund it out of his own pocket. To recoup the costs, he and the director created an additional behind-the-scenes film called The Making of Michael Jackson's Thriller. The product quickly generated millions, driving the Thriller project to unprecedented commercial success. Audiences no longer saw the music video as just supplementary content for the album. It became a genuine cultural event. In the early 1980s, MTV, the American music television channel, was almost exclusively the territory of white artists. Many industry insiders believed black music wasn't suitable for mainstream audiences. Michael Jackson shattered that mindset with the enormous commercial power of Thriller. Overwhelming audience demand eventually forced MTV to play his videos non-stop. At the 1984 Grammys, Michael Jackson took home 8 golden statuettes in a single night. This was no longer just the success of a single artist. It was like the moment a global brand was officially born, and Michael understood that better than anyone. Initially, many iconic details appeared for purely practical stage reasons. He wore white socks so the audience could see his foot movements under the lights. His pants were cut higher above the ankle to highlight his dance moves. His sparkling jackets helped Michael stand out in large performance spaces. But as those images repeatedly covered television screens and magazine covers, they began to become a globally recognized signature. In 1983, at the special television program celebrating Motown's 25th anniversary, the moment Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean and executed the moonwalk with his sequin glove shocked all of America. With a fortune reaching $100 million by the mid-1980s, nearly $284 million today, Jackson transcended his role as a performer to launch deals that redefined the entertainment world. The story is said to have begun in the late 1970s. After establishing his independence with Off the Wall, Michael Jackson began searching for like-minded artists of similar stature to create the next big explosion. His special admiration for former Beatles member Paul McCartney drove the young star to cross the ocean to England. Paul, at the time, was also eager to reach mainstream audiences with melodies carrying a modern sensibility. The intersection between the seasoned experience of a 1960s legend and the breakthrough ability of a rising pop star laid the groundwork for a series of classic collaborative projects. They entered the recording studio in London together to craft hits like The Girl Is Mine and Say Say. The days working together transformed their professional relationship into a close real-life friendship. While working in London, Michael stayed with Paul's family. One evening during dinner, the topic of money and music ownership unexpectedly came up. Paul pulled out a notebook listing the songs whose publishing rights. He controlled and explained to Michael how this business worked. He said artists could make a fortune from touring or selling records. However, the truly sustainable revenue stream lay in song publishing rights. Every time a song was played on the radio, performed on stage, or used in commercials, money flowed into the pockets of whoever owned the rights. That was a profit stream that could last for decades, even after the artist had left the stage. Paul advised Michael to find a good management team and seriously invest in the music publishing business. Michael was immediately captivated by the idea. He listened very intently, then half-jokingly said that one day he would buy Paul's music. No one in that room that night thought those words would become reality. From very early on, they had expanded into the music publishing business. At that time, he held numerous works and various music catalogs with different commercial values. However, they had gone through an extremely difficult period after being forced to sell nearly all of the Beatles' music rights in the 1960s. The reason stemmed from tax issues in England at the time. After fulfilling their financial obligations to the government, artists could lose up to 90% of their income. To avoid that massive tax burden, Paul established Northern Songs to manage the Beatles' music publishing rights and took the company public. Initially, this was seen as a fairly smart financial move. However, things quickly spiraled out of control when shareholders sold their stakes to a TV, a massive British media conglomerate. As a result, the publishing rights to most Beatles songs ended up in the hands of that company. They no longer owned their own creations. And that story quickly became a classic cautionary tale throughout the American entertainment industry. Michael Jackson remembered it extremely well. In the following years, the young singer began quietly acquiring various small music catalogs. Michael didn't jump into every deal on the market. He only chose songs he genuinely loved. That selectivity showed his thinking was shifting from artist to intellectual property investor. As his career exploded, Michael's enormous wealth allowed him to dive deeper into the world of music publishing. By September 1984, his representing lawyer brought unexpected news.
By the way, the ATV catalog is available. It includes a few things you might be interested in. Northern Songs. You mean the Northern Songs? The Beatles? Yeah, Mike. But wait. Other people are also after the catalog. It's going to be a struggle. I don't care. I want it. Please.
And that was the moment the historic deal began. Initially, Michael wasn't particularly interested in the song rights, but the ATV catalog included many other asset studios, equipment, and even life insurance contracts for famous artists. It even included a contract for Paul himself. However, his offers usually weren't attractive enough for a TV to seriously consider. Part of the reason was that Paul primarily wanted to reclaim only the Beatles' music, not the entire accompanying asset system. Michael Jackson was different. He was willing to buy everything. After his advisory team completed the valuation of the catalog on November 20th, 1984, Michael sent an offer worth $46 million to the conglomerate's owner, along with a request to meet in London within 10 days. As soon as they received the information, ATV's owner immediately suspected Michael was just a frontman for Paul McCartney. They could hardly believe that a black singer, in his 20s, had both the ambition and the financial power to execute a deal of this scale. The owner of ATV was described by the financial world as Australia's most ambitious. Recluse, a businessman who owned a war chest worth $1 billion. To him, Michael was nothing more than a lamb in this deal. Nevertheless, he responded to the offer and agreed to hold discussions in London on December 14th. After a tense meeting yielded only a non-binding memorandum, Jackson proved he wasn't Paul's front. He stunned the financial world by spending over $1 million to verify the legality of nearly 4,000 songs in the ATV catalog. Teams of lawyers, accountants, and experts were dispatched to the United States, England, Canada, Germany, Australia, and the Netherlands to audit every single file. This was because the ATV owner could walk away at any time before a formal binding contract existed. However, that large-scale due diligence process actually gave Michael a crucial advantage. While other parties were still weighing the true value of a TV, Michael's team had completed all legal and financial verification. They understood exactly how much the catalog was worth, which songs generated the most revenue, and what hidden risks existed. From then on, things started going smoothly, but subsequent negotiations quickly hit a deadlock. The two sides fiercely debated price and guarantee terms. His presence reminded ATV they were dealing with the most famous star on the planet. The atmosphere eased slightly. However, the real battle only began in May. The ATV owner started changing his attitude, repeatedly bringing old terms back to the table to pressure Michael into raising his price.
Mike, listen to me. Holmes is playing games. We need to go hard. It's time to pull the offer.
Michael understood the risk of losing the treasure trove he'd long desired. Despite being extremely anxious, he decided to hold firm. He ignored letters from ATV for 3 consecutive weeks. Right before the deadline, Michael instructed his lawyers to send a final response. Either accept the current price or good luck with other buyers. That silence led to an unexpected consequence. In early June, ATV surprisingly signed a preliminary agreement worth $50 million with another conglomerate. Michael's deal seemed completely collapsed. But he didn't panic. Michael was confident that ATV was wavering, and the new buyer probably couldn't complete the transaction fast enough. Just as he predicted, in early August, ATV contacted him again. The conglomerate they had signed the preliminary agreement with, despite offering a higher price, was stuck in a series of financial approval procedures from banks. This was the moment Michael had been waiting for.
Tell him I will add $1.5 million. But we close it now. Right now.
At 2:45 on August 10th, 1985, the official contract was signed with a total value of $47.5 million, paid entirely in cash. To the financial world, this was an extremely bold move by a pop singer in his 20s. As for Paul McCartney, his emotions were completely different. He later stated that he felt betrayed. Things became even more tense when Michael began exploiting the Beatles' catalog in various commercial projects. Paul opposed this, believing it diminished the original artistic value. However, Michael saw the issue from a completely different angle. He believed that the more people heard those songs, the greater their cultural value became. In 1990, the two had a meeting to resolve their differences. From a financial perspective, Michael Jackson had made a genius decision. The value of ATV continued to increase dramatically over time. That copyright catalog generated enormous revenue through radio, television, film, advertising, and various other commercial exploitations. However, business is war. Michael's success sent a dangerous signal to the sharks in the global music industry. There was an unwritten rule in showbiz. Record labels existed by controlling artists. Contracts with countless complex terms allowed them to capture most of the revenue. No matter how famous artists were, most still had to depend on the production system. But Michael Jackson took a completely different path. By the late 1980s, he wasn't just the most famous star in the world. He also owned an enormous fortune that few artists could match. That made many entertainment corporations start looking for ways to pull Michael back under media control. Right at that moment, Sony emerged as a new force. The Japanese conglomerate was expanding its influence into Western markets through a series of billion-dollar deals. After acquiring CBS Records, the parent company of Epic Records, Sony renamed the entire system to Sony Music Entertainment. That move quickly made them one of the most powerful names in the global entertainment industry. However, that machine was still missing a crucial piece, because the real revenue in the music industry didn't come from selling records, but from exploiting song rights. And one of the most valuable catalogs at the time was owned by the artist who was collaborating with them, Michael Jackson. In the early 1990s, Michael's financial situation fell into difficulty. He was embroiled in child sexual abuse allegations and became the focus of global media. Although he always denied any wrongdoing and was never criminally convicted, Michael still accepted a civil settlement of approximately $22 million. The scandal triggered severe consequences. The Dangerous tour was canceled midway. Major sponsorships vanished, and Jackson's personal expenses continued to climb. Across the Pacific, Sony's executives immediately saw an opportunity. They believed Michael needed money to maintain his lifestyle and resolve financial pressures. If they made an attractive enough offer, Sony could acquire the TV catalog. As for Michael, he also understood what he owned. That catalog could generate sustainable cash flow for decades. However, operating a global royalty collection system required an enormous network. And that was something Sony had. The combination of the Japanese technology conglomerate and the most famous artist on the planet thus became a reasonable choice for both sides. Still, Michael didn't want to give up the catalog. He and his legal team proposed merging a TV with Sony's music publishing division to create a completely new joint venture. The most important condition was that both sides would jointly own and operate it on a 50-50 basis. This was a move that surprised many in the industry. Michael not only retained half ownership of a TV, but also indirectly held shares in Sony's entire music publishing system. Sony was in a difficult position. They needed a TV too much, and they also didn't want to lose the artist, who generated enormous revenue for the company. Finally, the Japanese conglomerate accepted the agreement. In 1995, the Sony VTV joint venture was officially established. 10 years earlier, Michael had spent about $47.5 million to buy a TV Music. Now, just agreeing to the merger earned him approximately $95 million in cash, while still retaining 50% ownership of the new company. Initially, many executives believed they had the upper hand. They thought Michael's financial difficulties would force him to sell the rest, giving Sony full control of the catalog. In reality, no such deal ever happened. Michael used that very alliance to expand his empire to an even larger scale. Global media immediately exploded. They saw this as one of the most powerful deals in modern entertainment history. A black artist had now become an equal partner with a massive multinational conglomerate from Japan. Sony WAI-TV grew extremely fast after its formation. The company continuously acquired additional catalogs from famous artists around the world. Millions of plays every day began generating enormous cash flow. Copyright revenue flowed in from films, TV commercials, video games, and later streaming platforms. Michael no longer had to rely entirely on touring to make money. He could generate revenue even while sleeping. To the public, Michael was still the king of pop, but behind the scenes, he was like a tycoon owning a global-scale copyright system. However, the relationship between Michael and Sony couldn't remain smooth forever. Sony was clearly unhappy about having to share long-term control. When they realized Michael would never sell his stake, resentment began to form. At the center of that tension was Tommy Mottola, the powerful CEO of Sony Music. Mottola was known for being cold and ruthless in the entertainment industry. Yet even he couldn't fully control Michael Jackson. Relations between the two sides seriously deteriorated after the album. Invincible was released in 2001. Michael believed Sony deliberately sabotaged the project by cutting promotion and refusing to support short films for the album. There was no large-scale tour like before. The marketing campaign was also much weaker than previous products Sony had invested in for him. Michael believed it was all part of a bigger plan. Sony still wanted to push him into financial difficulty to force him to sell his Sony WayTV shares. And Michael decided to strike back immediately. At a 2002 press conference, he did something no artist had ever dared to do.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
The entire entertainment industry practically exploded at that moment. This eccentric singer had attended Mottola's wedding, birthday parties, and had publicly expressed deep gratitude for his support many times. Now Michael was calling Mottola evil and worse. Never before had a music icon publicly challenged the system in such a direct way. And then the price of that rebellion quickly arrived. In the early 2000s, Michael Jackson began entering the most chaotic period of his entire life. He was turned into a pop culture joke. Neverland Ranch, the place Michael had built as an ideal childhood world, became a symbol of eccentricity. Gradually, the image of the world's greatest artist was gone. In 2003, the situation became more serious after the documentary Living with Michael Jackson was broadcast on television worldwide. Initially, Michael believed this would be an opportunity for the public to see the real person behind the superstar image. He allowed the crew to follow his life for months at Neverland. Cameras captured rare private moments that had almost never appeared in public before. However, when the documentary aired, things quickly spiraled out of control. Audiences around the world were shocked by Michael's statements about children, sleeping in the same room with boys, and the strange lifestyle inside Neverland Ranch. Many people began looking at Michael with suspicion instead of sympathy. As for Jackson, he felt betrayed. Michael believed Martin Bashir had deliberately edited the content in a negative direction to create a media scandal. His team later released unaired behind-the-scenes footage to prove that many scenes had been taken out of their original context. But the damage at that point was nearly irreversible. Just months after the documentary, Michael Jackson was formally accused of child abuse. The news immediately exploded globally. Neverland was raided by police in a massive operation. Those images quickly spread around the world, creating an unprecedented shock to Michael's career. From that point on, he practically lived between courtrooms, lawyers, and media chases. Michael had to spend millions on his legal team throughout the months-long defense process. Financial pressure also began to tighten. Music revenue dropped sharply. The enormous loans from before became increasingly dangerous burdens. He was forced to borrow more money, using his own copyright assets as collateral to maintain financial operations. By 2005, after a trial that shocked the entire world, the jury finally declared Michael Jackson not guilty on all charges. Legally, he had won completely. There was insufficient evidence to convict the King of Pop. However, Michael's career at that point was no longer what it once was. His reputation had been severely damaged after years of consecutive scandals. A segment of the public remained skeptical despite the court's verdict. Michael's relationship with the media and the music industry had also become more tense than ever. More importantly, that battle left enormous financial consequences. Debt continued to rise over time. Neverland faced the risk of foreclosure. Many loans were secured by Michael's own shares in Sony WayTV, the most valuable asset he owned. The industry thought they had buried him, but Michael was about to prove them all wrong. In May 2009, at the O2 Arena in London, a concert series called This Is It was launched. Initially, the organizing team only planned to hold about 10 shows in London. However, enormous audience demand forced them to adjust the plan. 10 nights quickly became 31, then 50. All tickets sold out at an incredible pace. The atmosphere was like a global fever. Even the media that had been tearing him apart ran headlines about the King of Pop's return. Michael was about to execute one of the greatest comebacks in modern entertainment history. Behind the scenes, the production scale of This Is It was also unprecedented. Michael was directly involved in most of the stage ideas, choreography, lighting, and visual effects. He wanted to turn this series into a live cinematic experience rather than a typical tour. Michael was now 50 years old, but still spent hours rehearsing choreography at extremely high intensity. However, the physical and mental pressure was silently becoming much more serious than what the public could see. Throughout the preparation for the tour, Michael continuously suffered from insomnia. He often had to use sedatives to be able to rest. On June 25, 2009, less than 3 weeks before the opening performance, Michael Jackson was found unconscious at his rented mansion in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles. Medical staff attempted resuscitation for many minutes before he was taken to the medical center. A few hours later, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at the age of 50. The This Is It tour never took place. Therefore, what remained from the final rehearsals created a different legacy. Michael's production team compiled all the behind-the-scenes footage into the documentary film Michael Jackson's This Is It, released in late 2009. The work quickly became a box office sensation. Sony finally bought out Michael's 50% stake in Sony ATV in 2016 for $750 million. That event became one of the most profitable investments any artist had ever made. The music industry may have once tried to erase him, but they couldn't do it. His legacy, business strategies, and influence remained virtually inviolable. That artist didn't just change music, he defeated an entire entertainment system with his intellect. To this day, he remains one of the wealthiest and most powerful artists of all time, even after his passing.